24-22, Michigan wins it in walk-off fashion at Wrigley Field over Northwestern. Despite 5 turnovers by the Maize and Blue, they find a way to, in the end, get the victory. And there were a few times it looked like it was not going to be the case. That is the good news. Michigan comes away with the win. The bad news is that Jordan Marshall went down in the fourth quarter with a shoulder injury. That didn't look very good. Of course, you had Haynes, who was Michigan's MVP, go down, and then Marshall steps in for him, and they don't miss a beat, and he looks great, and he was having a great game in this one, but he goes down. On the bright side, there was times in this game when you're watching Bryce Underwood, and you had Gus Johnson say he's throwing dimes. He looked good. I mean, he was on point with a lot of his passing. It was everything that you would hope for if you're a Michigan fan. That's the good side with Underwood. But then, he was throwing interceptions, and then he was fumbling the ball. And I don't know if it erases it of what he did good, but it was a mixed bag with Underwood. I think you put in the part about him being a true freshman and that he would learn from a game like this. And there were some positives, of course, with him being able to throw the ball. Big time positives when you look at Andrew Marsh and what he was able to do. 12 catches and 189 yards. Fabulous for the true freshman. I mean, he's a star, and he just keeps getting better and better. And he's got the chemistry with Underwood. You can say, wow, just think about those guys for the rest of the season. And then, next year and then the following year. And then you look, with everything with this one, there's you look, say, oh, that's really good. And then you say, well, what about Samaj Morgan and being back there on the punt return? I wouldn't be the only one since not right at the beginning of the season, but after you had watched the adventure of him back on returning punts, where you'd say, this is going to end up costing Michigan. So I don't know. It doesn't end up costing Michigan. He fumbles one. It was controversial replay. I don't know. Dean Blandino, I didn't even understand it depends what they called down there. I don't know. I thought they were going to get a reprieve there, but they didn't. And then it looked like it was over for Michigan. And then as soon as the defense, it was like, you get in and it's 7-6 at the half, and you're like, all right, Michigan comes out in the second half, and they get the ball back after Northwestern's first drive, and Marshall goes on this 65-yard run. Underwood, has a keeper. It's 14-6, and you're thinking, all right, this is good. But that was the next series where it's a 3-and-out, but then Samaj fumbles, and Northwestern is able to get a field goal that keeps them alive. Then Underwood goes on this tremendous drive where he's just throwing darts all over the place. It was an 80-yard. He ends up, just looking fabulous the way, and Marshall ends up capping it off. It's the one that ended up getting knocked out of his hands after it crossed the goal line. And, I don't know, what did you think? It was over at 21-9? It looked like Michigan had, pushed through everything, 21-9, the way their defense was playing, despite the turnovers. You're feeling pretty good about yourself with Michigan's second drive of the second half. But then, Northwestern, they march right down the field. Now they got to get a 2nd and 22, and they're just throwing it up for grabs in midfield. And this guy, Wild or whatever, he's going up, snagging the ball, and Northwestern goes down and scores, so that you couldn't get comfortable. Could not get comfortable in this game if you were Michigan, because every time you did something and you were ready to exhale and think, all right, they're going to survive this one, Northwestern would come right back and put them in danger. And it was that way the whole time. As soon as you thought that this one was in the bag, then it wasn't. And then it looked like it was going to end up the other way. Now, there were a few things when it came down to this game that I know people were upset about. And, you could probably pick about 10 things, but should Michigan have kicked the field goal when they ended up fumbling the ball? I actually thought that was going to be it for them, that they were probably not going to come back after their fifth turnover. I thought, no, that's actually going to be the nail in the coffin for them after they coughed it up here. Zvada had not had a good day. I have to be honest that I like the idea of going for it. We have talked about it here that at times you think about taking Underwood and getting snaps from under center, not always in the shotgun. I like the idea. I went for it, but I didn't like having Underwood have to take that snap and go that whole way. I don't like it. I don't like it with any team. If you have a yard or less than a yard to go, get under center. If you can't get under center in college football, I know he's 18 and you have to be able to do that. And I don't know, apparently Michigan can't. So, maybe they were thinking about faking it and running with him. I don't know. I mean, it was the power game. It was coming down to that. But, in the end, I don't even know about the snap. But he ends up looked like he was offering the ball up too high. But then the defense did come up, get him a 3-and-out. I thought on the third down on Northwestern's final drive that Michigan should have called a timeout. They let a lot of time burn off there. And then when Michigan did get the ball and they incredible catch, great throw by Bryce Underwood, great catch, I think as Joel Klatt said, great throw by Underwood, even a better catch by Marsh to drag both of his feet in there and get it in there. If they would have turned that one over, I think there would have been a lot of people that would have run out on the field and gone after the officials. But I didn't understand what was going on with Michigan calling the timeouts there at the end. That had me confused. Why are you doing that? I think that maybe they were thinking, okay, we're going to try to score a touchdown, but then they didn't. So they, on one hand, were thinking there was no reason to call the timeout if, you were going to end up kicking the field goal there. But I'd give it up to the Kuzdzal for coming in and running as hard as he did. He did a hell of a job. Marsh did a hell of a job, and then, I don't know, Zvada ended up, after missing 2 field goals, he hits that third one. So credit goes to him for making it when it counts. At the beginning of this game, they were showing the configuration, and it didn't come into play. But if I was Michigan and Northwestern said, here's the layout of the field, and this is what we're going to do to play this game, and I was Sharon Moore, and I looked at the configuration, or I was Ward Manuel, and I looked at the end zone, and the one corner of the end zone, you have where the out of bounds is, but then right, I don't know, what is it, a yard where they put the white paint? The wall is right there. Now, if you're running to catch the ball, it totally affects the game, and it's a complete hazard. I would have said, no, we're not playing that. You need at least, I don't know, 5 yards at any stadium. They're going to put a couple of cushions up like it's basketball, under the goal or something. Michigan, I'm just complaining after the fact. I would have complained before if I would have saw the configuration. I don't know why Michigan didn't, but I guess that's nobody hurt themselves that way. The field right off the bat. I hear Joe Klatt saying, "Well, down at this end of the field, I'm not so sure about the turf." Okay, why? What's going on here with that? But Michigan gets the win, and on the other hand, now you go and you think about, well, they're just gonna be able to beat Maryland, probably down Jordan Marshall, and of course down Justice Haynes as well. and you're getting down to it. Should the expectation be that you win that game? Uh, I think so. There'll be a favorite in that game, but thinking about that they should, or you'll be disappointed after watching how this team has played all year long. I was thinking that over these, really since Michigan State, they could work on the passing game, or they could get better, get Bryce, they could be dangerous. They got Jordan Marshall. Here comes the defense. And then Purdue, it's the same thing. And then we know what happened there. And then today I was saying I didn't want it just to win. I needed just to see the passing game. But now with the injuries, it's it feels to me, if I'm playing just the rest of the season game here, that if Michigan beats Maryland to set up a chance to beat Ohio State to get into the playoffs, and almost I don't know, it's just I don't know, a soft commentary or letting them off the hook or whatever else, but if they could just make a game of it against Ohio State, then it's still, the season hasn't been that bad, all things considered. That's kind of how I'm thinking right now. I mean, you have to adjust. You adjust your expectations, how things go out on the field. Sure, you have your preseason expectations. You might say it's either pass or fail. You either get into the college football playoff or you don't. I get that. If you're just I guess you'd call yourself a hardliner there, but being down their impact running back and now being back down their second impact running back, is it fair? And then say, yes, absolutely. They have to win these next two games, or, it's a failure. That's a nice thing that, if you're running a talk show, or, maybe you're a columnist, to say it is a failure if they don't win these next two games. A lot of people down on Sharon Moore as this game was going on. I was looking at a game thread on the Maize and Blue Review, and as I'm going through things, there were a number of things, coaching decisions, that you could question him on. Now they end up getting the win. Does it absolve him from all of that in some of the things that he did, and the whatever, his game management with the timeouts or no timeouts? The biggest thing for me, and you could say, it almost cost them, is putting, and I said, what do you want to say about Samaj Morgan? Again, you go back to it. Why it was going to be a matter of time. Every single person predicted that he was going to lose a game, that he was going to lose a big fumble at a critical time. Why in the world would they keep putting him out there? He was showing no signs of doing things positive. Oh yeah, maybe he'd catch a ball or return 110 yards, but the next time he was fielding one on the 3-yard line, and it was just bound to happen. And for Moore, he's hanging in there with this guy. He's putting all of his faith in there. He's trusting him. But what it was a gamble by him. If he kept putting him back there and he busted one, he'd have gone out there and said, hey, I hung in there with my kid. I believed in him. And, look where it got us. And then, you'd say to him there, you'd say, you know what? Nobody agreed with you, but you putting your faith in that kid because you knew him, congratulations. That's a great move. But when everybody looked at it and said, why in the world would you have him back there? He's just going to cost you a game. He's going to, fumble one away. And he damn near did cost the game. So what do you say when a coach does something like that? Oh, they got the win. No harm, no foul. Go ahead, say it. It's just something that it's you make all of these different decisions, and the ones that stand out, to me, people say that's coaching malpractice. It was always looked like it was going to be a bad move, and then when it comes out to be a bad move, it's a bad move by Sharon Moore. He gets the win, that's all well and good and everything else, but shaky coaching by Michigan. And that's fine. You want to just be like, a win is a win. I see a lot of people that's all, win's a win. I don't care. I don't care anything that goes on, nothing that happens. Hey, all freshmen, youngest team in the Big Ten, down 2 running backs. Let's give the guy his credit. All right, give him his credit, but also address some of the moves and questionable moves he's making to put Michigan in some bad places. There were plenty of those today as well. So good job ultimately for getting the win for Moore, but also a few things that you look at that should make you uneasy about the head man for the Wolverines. All right, that's how I see it. I'll take some of the feedback and see, what stood out to the people. 5 turnovers for Michigan. They end up getting 496 yards to 245 for Northwestern. But it was even like that in the first half. Michigan is up 7-0 heading into the second quarter, and it felt like, man, Underwood looks great. The defense is getting stops, and it's just a 1-score game when it came down to it. So there you go. We'll take it from the top and see where the people are at. Here is, get some thoughts. Rip is posting numbers. See if see how accurate he is when it comes down to his numbers. See if we can get some up there. Not really sure why. Maybe 1 second. I'm trying to put some numbers up on the board. Oh, there they are. They're the numbers. Underwood, 21 of 322, 2 picks, no TDs. Let's see if I can get up to the top there, if that's what it looks like here too. Sorry about that. A little scrolling or rolling. What we're doing here. There we go. 21 of 32, 280. Nice job. 2 interceptions, no touchdowns for Bryce. Here's Marshall, 19 of 142, 2 touchdowns, had that 65-yard run, ended up hurting his shoulder on that big run on Michigan's second drive in the fourth quarter. Kuzdzal, he gets a game ball, 16 carries, 54 yards. Underwood did a nice job on the ground. He ran the ball, did a nice job, 9 for 30 and a touchdown. The 2 interceptions and the fumbles, that wasn't so hot when it came down to it. And then you look at Marsh, targeted 15 times, 12 catches, 189. McCulley did a decent job in there. There were a few times, you're looking through there, you wanted the tight ends. You got Klein, you got Tonelli, you had Marshall, just one, but, they spread it around a little bit there. Toby saying that was too close. It was close. LJ needs to stock up on his Tums to finish out the season. He is happy for the win. A toughly fought game. LJ asking if we know about Marshall. No, I don't think we know yet. It's not a good sign. He didn't have his helmet and went right down. And I think that it was Klatt was talking about the AC joint. I mean, those are the things that you think about when you see a guy like that. Jamie says they find a way to get our running back hurt. I mean, it's football. I can't. It happens. Northwestern was playing dirty. That's from Big Meek. There was a hit on Kuzdzal in the fourth quarter where it was helmet to helmet. And, Klatt was like, this is a big time hitting game or whatever he was saying. And that was right when he went in there and, you could say, why wasn't that targeting? I'd have to look. It looks like, you still, even if it's a running back, you can't lower the crown of your helmet and lead in there with it. However, watching all football, college and pro, the quarterback is the one that, or a defenseless receiver with a catch. When they're running the ball, you almost never, I mean, how many times could you really say that you have seen them throw the flag? I'm not absolving the refs out of anything, but if that's the one that you're talking about, I get what you're saying when you say a dirty. Yeah, I don't know anything specifically about Marshall. I'll check as we're, live right after the game. Mr. Martini says no team knows winning ugly like Michigan. Tyler, looking at the bright side of things, he says, I know people are mad, but imagine if we lost. And there he goes. A win is a win. I'm going to have to say, not really. A win is really not a win. And when you'd say, well, when isn't a win is a win? A game like today, a game where you get your star player, where star player gets injured, you've turned the ball over 5 times, you miss a bunch of field goals. I mean, that win, sure, is this one that you're running around and putting your index finger up, because what it portends is not all that great here for the final 2 games. But if you want to play this game, that the dub's a dub, then go ahead and do it. Vince says it's a bright future. Tough way for the season to essentially end with no Marshall and no Haynes. We have no chance against OSU. I would say that's how that is how it looks. Jamie's talking about it being a poorly coached team. 2 weeks to prepare. And specifically, they said they were working on ball security. WTH. Well, yeah, everything is a reflection of the head coach. So, the 5 turnovers, ultimately, that's going to be a reflection of your head coach. But it was like I went through some of the things that I didn't like. This is not a game for, somebody who would be, I don't know, Sharon Moore's next door neighbor or best friend to come out and say, what do you, this win's a win. That was a great job by Sharon getting the W. That's not how I would feel about it. I would say, Sharon a little bit lucky that he was able to get the W out here. And the Morgan thing is something that blew up in his face. I'm tired of hearing coaches say, oh, well, if he would have scored a touchdown, everybody would have been praising him. Well, yeah, that's how it works. That's how sports works. You make the call and it works. You get the pat on the back. If it doesn't, and it blows up in your face when everybody's saying that it's not going to work, well, then you're the big dummy. And so that's part of it. That's not a great look for Sharon Moore when it comes down to it. And then there was a litany of other things that you'd go in there if we're going to break down that, you could sit around, saying that you're glad that Michigan won, and you should be, but you're wondering, what the hell's going on with the coaching staff. Mike says they could have folded. Youngest team of the Big Ten. There you go. The youngest team of the Big Ten. Zvada redeemed himself, was able to get the W. Bimba saying Moore's not a good coach on fundamentals. No, the team was not very good in that regard. I'm with you on that. Mike, again, I'll give you another one, Mike. Moore is coaching up and growing the youngest team of the Big Ten and just led them to win a game with more adversity than they'd ever seen. More equals good. Yeah, well, I would say that Sharon Moore is the coach, and yes, certainly you can't argue, but the youngest team. Boy, people love talking about the youngest team, and They did just get a win, but they got a little bit lucky with how he coached the game. Just know that, Mike. I mean, if you want to, you pat him on the back, enjoy the win, but know that your coach had a bad game. And that can happen. You can have a bad game as a head coach, and you can still win the game. Underwood up and down. What's up, Bunk? What's up, Matt? Little Matt? Kuzdzal was awesome. So was Marsh. Fire J.B. Brown. Well, let's give J.B. Brown the same, Mike treatment as Sharon Moore. Hey, in the end, does he get credit for Zvada, kicking the field goal? Or do you look at how special teams was a gigantic stick of dynamite, and the fuse was lit nonstop and it kept blowing up? Or that J.B. Moore apparently just, was pulling a revolver out of his pants and then aiming it down at his feet and just unloading the clip. Man. Yeah, I mean, I think it was a nail biter. Be, happy for that. Happy for the win. Marsh was really awesome. SW Alliance wants to talk about Bryce. I thought he played actually well, but those 2 interceptions were inexcusable. 5 turnovers and he won. I'll take it. Yeah, the 2 interceptions were pretty bad, and so was the fumble that he had. But man, the way he was throwing the ball. Other than that, he was pretty good out there. I mean, he was. That was the Bryce Underwood that I thought that we would see most of the year. One that, this incredible talent. Man, he was running the ball, he was throwing the ball, was directing the offense, and then there were going to be some turnovers in there. Marsh reminds Rip of Mario Manningham. I can see that. Dan is looking at the bright side of talking about they have gone through some championship seasons, so survive and advance. We are all good. I think maybe that might be an end of the season type piece of feedback. Hey, whatever they end up. Oh, look at the last 5 years. Look at those. Look at 21, 22, and 23. We'll always have that. The season's not over, so I don't want to, be. It feels like I was here and there was the win. Hey, congratulations! Then I swung over talking about the interceptions, but hey, look at Marsh, and then but it's like, oh yeah, but look at the interceptions. Oh, look at Bryce. So I'm just swinging back and forth on how this game went because there was so much of that, and then I am. And what is natural for people to do is stay on the negative side, even though it was a win. And sometimes it comes down where you would just like to see people, give it a fair appraisal of what went on over there. And not in look, you should say, like, I'm just a huge Michigan fan. I'm going to just emphasize the positive. I'm talking about you. And everybody can do it, the way they want. Greg didn't understand the time at the end of the game. Why stop the clock and save Northwestern from using their timeouts? Oh, I don't know. You go through some of these the game management and time management things. I remember at the half of the Nebraska game, I got on here and saying, and people were like, "What was Biff doing there? I should have called the timeout." I said, Biff was fine. As I watched it, I was watching it, but it wasn't clocking to me. I wasn't figuring it out what Biff was doing. And I was telling people, he was fine. Well, then, I went back and watched it and I'm like, oh my gosh, no, the people were right. Biff should have definitely, it was he totally kicked that one. Where was Biff's help up in the booth? Sharon said that next Monday that, yes, Michigan does have somebody up there helping the coach in time management situations and all of that. But, but Biff totally kicked it. So, sometimes it's just going through and there's so many of these. But, yeah, at the end, I was thinking that doesn't make any sense to me. Klatt was saying, well, they probably don't trust their kicker. I think that's what he said. And that, they're probably going to score a touchdown. I'm like, well, I guess if you're going to, try to score a touchdown, score the touchdown, right? Marsh took Morgan snaps and is now on punt returns. Yeah, I mean, if you watch, if you get down to the stadium early enough, you'll see the first, second, third, fourth, even fifth string punt returners. And after Samaj, the one in the game I was watching, it was earlier in the season. It was Joe Taylor, the special teams ace, who looked like he was the second guy. Then Marsh, and then the fourth string guy was Jordan Marshall. Fifth string guy, it looked like it was Justice Haynes. Well, you have Haynes, and you don't have Marshall. So it was, and then Samaj took himself out finally. So then it was down to Taylor and Marsh, and what you have in Marsh is a star. I'm not ready, some superstar, sure. It looks like that's the trajectory, but certainly a star. So yeah, having him back there. Thank you. It's nice to know that I am loved. Mike says Manningham dreams of being Marsh. I don't know, Mike. Maybe you should go back and watch that Notre Dame game when, or the Penn State game where Manningham scored the game-winning touchdown, or he put a hat trick up against Notre Dame, and then he went to the pros and made one of the great catches ever down the sideline of the fourth quarter to win a Super Bowl. So I don't know, Mike. What's this? I'm glad you're in here, Mike. I don't know. Mike's got a lot. Let's pat everybody on the back, but let's look in the past and act like Manningham, wasn't all that good. Manningham was a great wide receiver for Michigan. Blank name says Wrigley Field is a dump. Using a bullpen as your locker room, just more evidence of that. Yeah, I would have nixed playing at Wrigley Field. But, they ended up getting it through from a field standpoint. I don't know. Did it affect the kicking or anything? Both teams have to do that. No, but it was dangerous in the end zones, and then the locker rooms and everything that you have to deal with. I don't know about any of that. It's a great setting, for sure, but it's a surprise to me. As much as they talk about, I don't want to put the student athlete in there, but safety, concerns. I'm going to put the end zone right next to it. I'm going to put a brick wall. Right, here's the end zone. And then 1 yard after the end zone, here's a big brick wall with ivy on it. Oh, okay. That sounds like that was a disaster. Mike coming back and saying that Eminem was a stud. Linda, how about Kuzdzal? Did a fine job coming up at the running back position when Marshall went down. Yeah, after Marsh, who gets the Maize and Blue Reviews game ball, I'll put Kuzdzal in there. I'll put Marshall. You could say, hey, maybe Marshall should be number 2. I wouldn't, if we were just talking. I'm just talking off the top of my head. Now that I'm thinking about if I was giving 3 game balls out, let's do it. Let's make the adjustment. Let's make the correction. We'll give Marsh the first game ball. We'll give the second one to Jordan Marshall, who carried Michigan and had them in position in the fourth quarter before going down with the shoulder injury. But then Kuzdzal gets the third game ball. Who would I give it to on defense if I had to give a game ball out? That would be one I have to think about. Let me just think. I sure did like the Jordan Young play. That was one, a true freshman. Speaking of the young team, he goes out there and on that third down gets his hand up. That was a thing of beauty. That was one play, real nice play. But I don't know if that would be the number one. It seemed like Houseman was everywhere Does it matter if he led Michigan in tackles? He didn't. Let's see. Mason Curtis made a big play. Rayshawn Benny. Let's see if anyone else. Michigan was jumping off sides a lot. I feel like, to me, it was going to be Houseman. But I could be swayed on that one. It's weird here as I look at it. Usually, you have the leaders of the defense, and Mason Curtis led Michigan with 5 total tackles, had 2 solo. I was expecting Houseman to have like 8 or something, and they have him down for 2. So I'm open for suggestions there. Exactly. Old Matlock. I like when I am referred to as Fat Rack. That is a compliment to me. That was my nickname 20 years ago when I was on the radio in Ann Arbor. So I know that Matlock goes way back when somebody's calling me Fat Rack. Give it up to old Bill, who was a senior point guard on this basketball team, the Menwith Hill Cavs, who dubbed me Fat Rack. Yeah, Kuzdzal did look a little banged up. Ripstar's wondering if Michael Capana is going to end up coming back. Let me look at the injury report because they have the ones out for the season. No, Capana is not on that one, so that is a good, but he has been out. I wonder the same thing as you. A-Train, giving his perspective, he says that was a perfect game of perseverance by a really young team. I thought 5 turnovers, it's over, but they found a way to win. Okay. It was a very physical game. I'm with you on that. BN was nervous about Kuzdzal because he didn't put 2 hands on the ball. Even when he knows the contact is coming, he was about 3 inches from the helmet on the ball several times. I'm not ready to say that Michigan is going to lose by 50 to Ohio State. Not ready to say that. Tyler says the fact that we have a season to worry about is a credit to the defense. Yeah, I like the defense, although they were weird today. Is that every time it looked like, or I don't know, every time, but finally, when it looked like Michigan, when they had the drive where Marshall, it was just the first drive of the third quarter, so obviously there was a lot of time to go, but you get the 65-yard run, and then Underwood does a tremendous job of faking out the cameraman, faking out everyone else. When he fakes it, I think it was actually to Kuzdzal there, keeps it, runs in for the 8 yards, and Michigan, they get the touchdown there. Not that it was over there because that's when Samaj fumbled, but the ensuing drive was Michigan's second drive of the third quarter. That's where it was Underwood's best drive of the season, 80 yards. I mean, he's Marsh. He's throwing over the middle of the tight end. Here's McCulley. And then, Marshall goes up. It's 21-9. I did think it was over. But that's when the defense, whoa, for as well as they had played up to that point, that's when they run out of gas or, just credit Northwestern for just throwing it up for grabs and making a few plays there. But that's when I was like, come on, man, the worst been the defense. Wolverines 7 bet. I don't know what that means. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. It was like a little riddle. Bet. They won by 2 points. So if you took Michigan -7, they were -10. That would have been a losing bet. That's it. The punters. talking about, hey, they won. They did. Here's what I was talking about earlier. With the injuries, this is from Harvey. He says he would be happy with 9-3. Well, so they've got what? We're talking about 8 wins now, right? So they got 8 wins. And Maryland, a winnable game, even with 4-string, 3rd-string, 4th-string running backs. I say 4th-string because Kuzdzal, whether we want to put him in, he was the 3rd-stringer in front of Jasper Parker today. But usually if we were making a depth chart, you'd put him. But yeah, you're down your not just your top 2 running backs, but the top 2 players this year on offense. You say, well, what about Marsh? All right, nice argument, but yeah, with those 2 injuries, those are key injuries. If Michigan had if we were sitting here talking about Michigan won this game and Jordan Marshall, you still point out, the other things that you didn't like and everything, but you'd feel like, oh yeah, Michigan, you feel pretty good about their chances of beating Maryland. And actually, from the way they've handled Ohio State, it's a little bit early to start looking at the forecast, but you get a cold day in Ann Arbor, maybe a little bit of snow. What do you think of Jordan Marshall? Any wink? The masterpiece that he put up against OSU next year? So there you go. Turnovers are not on coaching. Yeah, well, I think somewhat. It depends, what kind of play you're calling. The 5th one where you're going for it. So, like I said, I thought that they should have gone for it and not kicked there. You whatever you think. I don't know. So they didn't get it. Oh, you could definitely question that decision, but when you have a quarterback that can't take a snap under center, so you have to take it out of the shotgun. If we're going to talk about such a young team, should you really be putting a 18-year-old and shotgun, and when he's trying to hand the ball off to the 4th-string running back, you could say, was that the best allocation of your resources there? You can say that would have been on the coach. Putting Samaj Morgan back on the punt return, Tyler, I got news for you. That turnover is on Sharon Moore. You want to put it on J.B. Brown? Yeah, he's got a little bit to blame too. He is the special teams coach. But ultimately, having Morgan out there when every single person says he is going to fumble the ball, he is he's a negative for Michigan out there. Don't have him out there. And Moore says, nope, I'm riding with him. Well, when he drives it off a cliff, I don't know, Tyler. So those are 2 instances. You start talking about Bryce, throwing against the grain, things like that. I get that. But I got news for you. The Morgan, if you got a kid, let's say you got a 5-year-old, throw him the keys to the car and say, hey, smash that right foot if you can reach it down to the gas pedal. And then when he crashes into the tree or backs into the garage, you know whose fault that is? It's your fault, Tyler, for giving him the keys. Ferris is talking about the end of the game. The celebration was Zvada was the GOAT. The GOAT was the Billy Goat is infamous at Wrigley Field. Happy with that. Loved how he blew kisses. I'll have to take your word for it. When the game was over, I made my way down the stairs and down the hallway to the studio. To a flip. I don't know if you're talking to me. That's not going to happen. Villy the kid says you kind of look like the king of Queens. I've actually heard that before. That guy's pretty funny. And actually liked that show. And he pulled a pretty hot wife, so I'm going to take that as a compliment. I guess we have more than one thing in common. Me and I forget what that Kevin something. Woo! Well, who are you talking about? What kind of flip? What kind of flip do you want someone else to do? Blank name says Sharon continually employs JB Brown as special teams coach. He does do that. SW Lion is talking about some of the game management situations. I get that. I didn't understand that one either. Is Morgan out for the season now? Samaj Morgan, as a punt returner, I would think, yeah, but your guess is as good as mine there. I can't. Does he double down or triple down? Because I don't know what kind of down it would be for him. I think it's fourth down. Samaj was still out there running pass patterns, so it's not like they've just put him on the bench and put a dunce cap on him and said that's it. Your Michigan career is over. It's not like they took him out and said, get to the locker room, head to the transfer portal. No, I mean, he didn't mean to fumble it, but my guess would be that he would not be returning any more punts. I can't imagine sitting around a bunch of Michigan fans for the Maryland game, and Maryland goes in a punt formation, and whoever's doing the game is there's Shamaj Morgan back there for, look, JB Brown he's had a bad year, and he's probably not going to be the special teams coach next season. That phase of the game has been a real disaster for Michigan. So I think that, he doesn't have to walk back to Ann Arbor, but I would say that, excuse me, I got choked up. I would say that, he's not going to be the coach. Fire him now. I mean, that's, I don't know. I don't know what good that does. Yeah. I know it's a trend right now in college football. There've been, plenty of coaches been fired. It's like the NFL, the NIL and everything else. That's the way things go. Can anybody anytime. But, firing unless, there's something off the field or something, I would not fire the coach. However, if there's somebody else that could that you feel like could be put in that spot, if there was an analyst or something, maybe a different voice, I'd be for something like that. It sucks talking about getting demoted during the season. Is that better than getting fired? Yeah. Kind of like Dan Campbell with the Lions, what he did. It is rifle season, I believe. Deer hunting season just opened up. I start hearing a couple shots out the window. Tyler's coming back. Tyler, I like the positivity, Tyler, even though you and I don't agree on much of what you've had to say today. He says if our O-line can perform like that, that's good coaching. The O-line is, there's different things with the O-line. I thought they did a nice job run blocking. I thought they did a poor job pass blocking. When the quarterback is getting the ball and he doesn't have time to, he gets the ball and he looks up and there's two guys in his face, and it happens 3, 4, 5, 6 times. He goes and, they run a reverse, and the guy is almost meeting Marsh on the end around. The pass blocking, I say atrocious. That sounds. At times it was atrocious, but I would bet. I didn't have my pro football focus and looking at each and every, how could you? But below average grades on the pass blocking. Rip loved the venue. It was beautiful. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was just hazardous for the players. Mike wants to give that shout out to the offensive line in the fourth quarter. There you go. Don asking about Jordan Marshall. Well, let's just see what we come up with here. That's a maybe there. Hopefully, there's nothing here, which just could be, prolonging the inevitable. But see if there's. Here we go. Sharon Moore says Jordan's Marshall's x-rays were negative and he should be okay. We will give him an ice pack and a masseuse. Now let me check and see that. I mean, that is. Here's another one. Sharon Moore says the injury to Jordan Marshall is not serious. Michigan coach Sharon Moore says the injury to running back Jordan Marshall is not serious. He got x-rays at Wrigley Field, and he could be in line to return next week. Whoa! That's nice. Sharon Moore added, feels like he's in a good place, just needs the best masseuse in town. Not pretty good, shocking, to me to see that. Not bad. People are talking the possible AC joint sprain. Who knows? Now, look, I imagine that he's not going to be 100%, but if he's possible to play against Maryland, and this is not a case where you're, do you gamble? Can they afford to gamble with resting him up? Now that you're thinking about it, how much is that going to help him? And then, have him up for Ohio State if you can give him the rest. It's a little bit early, but I'm in for a little bit of that speculation. I don't know if you're being. I don't really know what's going on. So no, I'm going to say Marshall. That's as positive as you could possibly see that he can return next week. This game will go down in history. Yeah, Northwestern played balls out. They did. They kept getting back up on the mat. Thought they were done. They just kept making a play. They kept staying in it. Even though when Michigan was really looking good there, you look up, they're like, wow, they're still hanging around. Then when you think it's over, they drive the field. They stayed in there. Man. If they play like they did today, Ohio State's going to beat them by 3 scores or more. Well, that's true, but I would say that Michigan will play their best game of the year against Ohio State. So when I watched Michigan last year and the way that they lost to Washington, turning the ball over, 3-and-out galore, when I followed up, it was actually against Illinois. They're fumbling, interceptions. It was just a Dono fumbling. There's no way they're going to beat Ohio State. The way they lost to Oregon and Indiana, the coaching situations in there, they're not going to beat it. Ohio State, they might not beat Northwestern. Well, they did beat Northwestern, and then they beat Ohio State. So I know, but it's true. But I would expect them to play a lot better. And now I would say that I'm perked up a little bit about the Marshall news. Wink and the blitzes in the first half, we got burned several times because of it. During the game, every time there's a completion or anything, I've got 100 Michigan fans online talking about, Wink blitzes too much. Why is Wink blitzing? Oh, there it is again. Wink, wink, wink. Blitz, blitz, blitz. And I don't know the defense. The defense didn't turn it over 5 times. They were put in some pretty tough spots. And so overall, they did pretty good. I think there's some truth to it, but I also think, and I don't know who drives it. I think there's some film dudes in the media, like Michigan media, and there's one, and these guys might be, fine people. They might even know, football and all of that, but there's some people that just have it out. They had it out for Wink from the start, and they're just every play, the Wink F's up, and if they get a stop, it's like it's lucky. And then I'm not saying Harvey, like I said, there's some truth to that. That he could blitz a little bit too much, but I think that it's a little bit overdone by the fans and the media. Tyler, people are going to blame the coaching when we got over 500 yards. Yeah, well, you'll have to go back and listen to what I had to say, Tyler. What you're doing is just pat Michigan on the head and acting like there's nothing wrong and everything went great today. And let's put this game into the Hall of Fame and let's give the coaches raises and bonuses and let's just tell these guys how great they are. Where there's another story involved in here as well. Like, what was this call? Why was this going on? And, how does this team, come out and play like this after a bye, which are all legitimate questions. And you don't want to deal with any of those. That's fine. What happens here is that what we are able to do is look at the game, analyze the game, talk about what went well, and then look at the other side. And I get that most of the people that you watch or probably read, they always got some kind of agenda where they're going way overboard or they're, total homers. And so, when somebody's giving it to you right on the mark and nailing it, you don't know what to do. Is this guy some super homer or some, big blank hole with negative about Michigan? No. What it is, it's watching it and giving the, an opinion, even if it's one that you don't like. You're used to getting the, the maize and blue room service, and people love it. There it is. There's that room service. You get that Michigan victory. Let's sing the victors. And there's room for a little bit of that. I'm just trying to have fun. And I think you are too. I hope you come back, Tyler. I've, enjoying you. This is the Big Ten. The other team has scholarships. Now, Don says Michigan is very shaky now at the end of the coach's more second season. Yeah. Game ball to Marsh. I'm with you on that. I've given the game balls out. I've given 3. If there was only one game ball to give out, I would give it to Marsh, Andrew Marsh. But I give 3 game balls out. Now, look, that's like, hey, everybody gets a prize. Not everyone. 3 game balls. Marsh, Marshall, Kuzdzal. Those are my 3. That's how I see it. Sam says he hopes Marshall is good. It's feeling a little shaky. Bryce will grow from this season. Heck, Bryce, woo! Bryce is a whole other story. What went on today? I hope I taped that game. It went a little bit longer. I hope the tape didn't run out. The DVR. Because, man, going through that, with the exception of those, the fumble and those picks, whoa, man. Now, those are factored in. But I was happy to see him throwing the ball in, for the most part. Sure, there were a few high, a couple short, but the catchability of the passes, the accuracy. That's what I was hoping for. Yeah, and the turnovers, you got to factor those in. It's kind of like talking about the team. It wasn't all like, oh, Underwood was awesome. Yeah, it was. He was awesome at times. He was dealing. And then he had the 2 picks and then the fumble. Maybe Ty will say Ty was the fumble. It wasn't on Sharon. We know that you don't want to put it on the coach or the call. You put half of it on Kuzdzal. You put half of it on Underwood. It seemed like he was leaving the ball out there a little bit high. Talking about the 4th and 1 where they were going for it when they fumbled it. It didn't seem like a very smooth. Of course, it wasn't a smooth operation, but it wasn't a smooth operation. It wasn't like he just stuck it, right in there, right in the breadbasket, and it just popped out. Right from the start, all of a sudden, he gets the snap, and the snap is high, and instead of bringing it down and putting it in a location, because of the situation, he leaves it up a little bit high, and then, cause that's what it looked like to me. So put a little bit on maybe even the center for that snap. Ron's talking about waiting on the person who wants more fired and have a name who they want to replace. Well, you can go down that road. I don't. If Michigan would have lost today, you got to be careful what you wish for, even if you're totally against Sharon Moore. You're just against him. You want someone replaced. Get him out. You don't really have to have a name. That's not your job. Your job as a fan is to do whatever you want that makes you happy. And what makes you happy is saying that, if this coach isn't getting the best out of his players, then, you say it's give it to the AD to get someone else. If I had to put together a list, I don't know, Jesse Minter, would he be, you'd have to wait. I don't know. Chargers are going to be in the playoffs, so that would be one. The whole thing with that, I'll just entertain it for a second. Like I said, even if Michigan would have lost today, I would like to give Sharon Moore 3 years. In general, Rich Rodriguez got 3 years, but there is game day coaching. There's like the coaching today you go through, but there's a lot of other things that go on as well. And, what he's been able to do in recruiting and being the face of he does a good job out there. And I would say that if you're somebody that's so negative, or somebody that, I don't know, even just fed up and you want to coach like during the game, you wanted them out. Do you want, they have a good recruiting class right now. They've got the revenue streams that are pouring in. They got a hell of a young team. All of this. Do you want to say that this is the part that, call them the tough guys that, want more out? You want Underwood and Marsh, to say we're out, peace, we're out. We're going to go somewhere, that's not going to be reactionary. We're taking off. We're going to entertain offers, because here's what happens. They all entertain offers. Everybody gets contacted and everything else after the season's done, back channel or whatever else. But when a coach is removed, then it becomes where the Underwood and, let's say, Marsh, let's just use the 2 best players on offense. Let's even put Jordan Marshall in there. We'll put those 3 guys. If you would remove Moore, I don't think those 3 guys are going anywhere. Whatever happens in these last 2 games in the bowl game, I think they're staying with Michigan. The young guys, they got something going here. But if you would take Moore and send him packing, Marshall, Underwood, and Marsh are then, what they're obligated to? That's their coach. Then I think they do throw open the offers and say, hey, you're getting rid of him. We'll hit the street too. Who's coming for us? That's what you want? I know one player isn't bigger than the team. Now, I'm not ready to, with the young talent that they have, I want to give Jerome Moore a lot of things I didn't like about his coaching today. I want to give him another year, at least. That's what I think. We're getting all kinds of people coming in today. I don't know what that means. John has a few things to say. Probably heard that joke before, John, huh? Bryce showed a lot of promise, but needs to be more consistent. He showed resilience on that game-winning drive, especially to throw the Marsh. The few, the proud, John. That nice comments. I think that's spot on. Bryce showed a lot of promise, but needs to stay away from the turnovers. Bryce showed a lot of promise, but on the last drive, after turning it over all of those times and going through the meat grinder, was able to connect on a beautiful throw and catch to Marsh. True freshman to true freshman. Great point. And John, if we had to put a play of the game, that's the one you're talking about. I know last week that, Gus Johnson, touchdown, whatever it was to Indiana. Oh, Gus called that one. Is it in? He had another one. It was tremendous. Alex. Capital. I like the work here, Alex. He says we are all caps seeing improvement. The run game started to look like 22 and 23 again. Now, I can't argue with that, Alex. Jordan Marshall looks like Hassan Haskins or Blake Corum. And just think if they had Haynes and Marshall. So there's no real reason to do that. It's very doubtful, although I'm not completely saying that Haynes is done at Michigan. More wishful thinking, I think, than anything else. But I think this is good. Got some good ones coming in on that. We're missing, Tyler says, a deep ball threat. Yeah. Well, they've got Zion Robinson, Travis Johnson, Jaden Pyle coming in next year. And I think with Travis Johnson and Zion Robinson's out of Texas, the same as Andrew Marsh. And one of those guys hit. And I would think that if there's one position that Michigan would be going after and spending, if they have, I don't know, $10 million, who knows how much they have? I'll $20 million, $25 million. They got more than that. $30 million. And I'm sitting there and talking with the GM and Albert Karstia and all this. And I'm saying, cut me off a big fat piece of, that NIL pie. Let's go get the best wide receiver in the transfer portal. The number one. Whoever it is. Get him. And bring him to Ann Arbor. I was going to say spare no expense. That sounds pretty stupid. Spare no expense. I said it anyways. We need 313 yards from Jordan Marshall in 2 weeks. It can be done. It's the one thing. Michigan is in Ohio State's head. You go back to Biaka Batuka in 95. And, 95, Michigan then won down at Ohio State. The following year, Ty Streets, when Sean Springs slipped. And then, of course, 97, the kind of run that they're on. We need Sadler from Cass Tech. I mean, I don't know how many freshman wide receiver. Like I said, they got Pyle, they got Robinson, they got Johnson. You're bringing in 4 wideouts? They were in on Sadler, and then I don't really know what happened. He kind of took his foot off of the gas in his recruiting, Where did he end up going? North Carolina? Here's a bit of optimism from Tyler. He thinks, wait, you think Justice should come back to Michigan? Because he does have another year, or you think Justice should come back this year? I think you're talking about next year. Now, I don't criticize guys if they like to come back. I applaud them. Even before NIL, when they were coming back and just getting an education, I still applauded them, where there were plenty of other people like, this guy's stupid for coming back. He's shooing millions of dollars, getting his clock going. You only got so many carries. Which, there's some truth to all that. But what I have seen from Haynes, from what he has put on tape, he looks like the real deal, exactly the kind of back that the NFL is looking for. The NFL is looking for a back that, if you give them a crack, they can take it the distance. And Haynes, I'll bet, runs a sub 4.4. Runs a sub 4.4. You put on the tape and watch him blow a 75-yarder against Oklahoma, Nebraska, Wisconsin. You just go through that, and, he's going to get picked pretty high. So does he want to give up that with everything else? I would guess, if I have to, and you're putting it out there, there's a part of me that wishes everyone would come back. But, and yeah, he'd get paid pretty good. And the combination of him and Marshall would be pretty awesome. But I think Haynes is going pro. I could have just said that straight up. Taking a long time. And the Brown Noser says he agreed with all that until Jake Butt wrecked his knee in that Orange Bowl. Yeah, that was one. I get it. And that was pre-NIL. He did have a deal. You get that insurance where he was going to, so he made a little bit there. But yeah, that's the one. I don't know if you put that as a cautionary tale. One thing, if you listen to Butt doesn't regret his decision at all. That's it. I don't think you need to do any petitioning. I think he's got an extra year. If you look through it, another year, sorry, if he wants to. So the decision is his. The decision is now mine. And the decision is that it's going to be dark out here in Ann Arbor in a few minutes. And I have to take my goats and put them in their barn. And I also have to take my dog and get him outside before it gets dark. And that's going to give me only a few minutes to go through. So that's going to do it. Thanks so much for contributing, Tyler. I'm going to give you a football. Here you go. Thanks so much for all the feedback. We continue to do this on the Maize and Blue review. Go to on3/rivals.com and join us for the rest of the day. We'll be going over this game, and then we'll be doing it all night. And then we'll be doing the same thing tomorrow morning. And then, you got the basketball game from last night. We're talking all about the basketball game, talking all about the football game, looking at the upcoming schedules, looking at recruiting, looking at every possible thing that you can know. That's what we do. It's a lot of fun. I guarantee you'll love it. You should be part of it. Join up the Maize and Blue review. We'll see you over there. If not, we'll talk with you on Monday. Everybody enjoy the rest of the day and enjoy this win. See ya.